Today we are going to make this cute little mouse pouch, which was designed by Millie Melly Designs. Our first step in making the little zippered pouch is to hoop up two pieces of fabric right sides together to do the ears. I've used my smallest hoop and just taped my fabric down to the stabilizer with some painter's tape. I've decided to use black cotton just to make it a little bit easier for you to see as I go along. Once you've stitched the outline for your ears, you can then remove your hoop from your machine and cut out your ears and turn them in the right way and just put them aside for later on. Once your ears are cut out and turned in the right way, you can then hoop up another piece of stabilizer on a larger hoop. Your next step will be to embroider the outline of the mouse's body. After your outline is done on your stabilizer, you can then go ahead and just run your next step, which will mark the outline for the zipper. Once your outline for your zipper is done, you can then remove your hoop from your machine and securely tape your zipper down over the outline for the zipper. It doesn't matter, the zipper needs to be longer so that your machine won't hit the ends. Make sure your zipper pull is to the left, which is the bottom of the mouse. Once you have secured that, you then need to turn your hoop over to the back so that your nose is pointing to the left. And you then need to take a piece of your lining fabric and line it up with the bottom zip line and securely tape that in place. Once your piece of lining is in place, you then need to turn your hoop back over to the front so that your mouse's snout is pointing again to the right hand side. You then need to take a piece of your outer fabric, align it with the bottom of the zip, and make sure that your fabric is facing right side down, and then securely tape that into position. Once your outside lining fabric is in place and taped down, you can then put your hoop back onto your machine and run your next step, which will actually stitch these fabrics together. Once you have embroidered your next step, you then need to remove your hoop from your machine again, turn it over, and you actually need to untape the fabric on the back. You then need to fold your fabric back this way. Make sure it's sitting flat and just re-secure it with some tape. Then turn your hoop back over and do the same with your piece of fabric on the front. After you have folded your fabric back and re-secured it, you can then put your hoop back onto your embroidery machine and embroider your next step, which will do the outline of the mouse's body and join your two pieces of fabric together. Done the outline for your side, you can then take your hoop back off your machine again and turn it over once again so that the snout is pointing to the right. We then need to take another piece of lining fabric and line it up with the top part of your zipper and secure that in place. Then you can turn it back over again and do the same with your other piece of top fabric, making sure that it lines up with the top of your zipper, and then secure it in place and put it back onto your machine and run your next step, which will stitch your two pieces of fabric together. Once your two pieces of fabric are stitched together, you then again need to remove your hoop from your machine, fold your fabric back and retape it out of the way, and do the same with your top piece. You then need to turn your hoop back onto your machine and run the next step, which will run the stitching around the outside here of the side. Well, that's both sides of our mouse now stitched out. Just remember, before you actually run that step, to remove the tape that's actually holding the sides of your zipper. Once you have run both sides of your mouse, you need to take it off your embroidery machine again and just cut off this excess end of your zipper. Just cut it off just past about there, and then put your hoop back onto your machine and run your next step, which will actually embroider just the placement line for our ears. Once you've done the placement line for your ears, you then need to place your ears into position and tape them down. After you have taped your ears down, you then need to turn your hoop back over to the back again. Take the tape off. And you then need to get a piece of fabric for your head. And it needs to go over your ear placement line and be taped securely down. And then you need to turn your hoop back over to the front again. Get this taped down. Turn your hoop back over and then put another piece on top like that and secure it again. My pieces of fabric are just a little bit too big. Once you've done that, you can then put your hoop back onto your machine and run your next step, which will run a line of stitching to secure your ears and both pieces of fabric into place. Once you have stitched the fabric together, you can then take your hoop off and once again turn it over. Just remove your tape. And you then need to fold the piece of fabric back up this way. And secure it once again. Then turn it over and do the same with your top piece of fabric so you can then see your little ears. Then put your hoop back onto your machine and run your next step, which will outline the mouse's head. Once the outline of your mouse's head has been done, you can then run the next two steps, which will embroider the mouse's nose and eyes on. You can at this stage change your colours if you prefer to make something that will stand out. Since I already have black thread in, I'm just going to use what I've already got on because mine will stand out on my yellow. After your mouse's nose and eyes are done, The next step is very important. You need to open your zipper all the way to the top so that it will make it a lot easier for you to turn your mouse in the right way when we're finished. After you have opened your zipper, you can then place your little tail into position. Be careful not to put it near the outline of the mouse. And you can just secure that with a piece of tape. You then need to take a piece of your fabric that matches the outside of your mouse, right side down. Place it over the top of the whole front of your mouse. Secure that with tape, and then run your next step, which will outline the whole mouse completely on your fabric. Once the outline of your mouse is done, you need to remove your hoop from your machine, turn it over once again, and place a piece of your lining fabric over the whole outside of the mouse again. Securely tape that down and run your next step, which will leave a gap at the bottom for turning your mouse in the right way. Once your lining is secured into place, you can then remove your mouse from your hoop and cut all around the outside, cut off the excess fabric. Once you have cut off the excess fabric from around your mouse, you then need to turn it through this little gap here. I like to try and trim as much excess around the nose as I can as well, just to make it easier to turn the nose in the right way. This is what your mouse will look like after turning it through the first gap. I like to then stitch across the bottom here with my sewing machine, and you will then need to remove the piece of stabilizer that's covering your zipper as well. Once the gap is stitched closed at the bottom, you can then turn your mouse in the right way through the zipper hole, which is why you had to leave your zipper open all the way. And that is our finished mouse pouch from Milly Melly Designs. You can find the pattern for this mouse pouch on the Milly Melly Designs Etsy store, and you can also follow Milly Melly Designs on Facebook. Thank you for watching.